champions. Yes, that's what we're here for. I wanted to introduce you to the all new champions. It's been completely reimagined from the outside in. Since 2013, it's kept the format of strategy, leadership and execution, and we're consistent with that format, but there's so much to add. So I'm going to give you a mini walkthrough of the features and feelings of it. It's all new case studies. It's the new next practices that have emerged in the last 12 to 18 months through the process of the pandemic and so on. It can now be accessed as well completely digitally. So we've built parallel effectively around all the principles that are involved in really good strategy, execution and leadership as performed by the best people on the planet. So I want to share that as well. The creation of parallel means that we now have a tool that can give us real-time feedback, in the moment feedback. It also does that thing that we've always tried to do within the champions, is to connect the dots between strategy and execution. And now we can do it in such a way that both we can document within parallel, we can operate parallel for improvements, we can assign responsibilities. So are you up for a quick walkthrough? And then I'll tell you what the offer is at the end of it, especially for those folks who've already been a champion previously. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay guys, what I'm going to do is walk you through a set of slides which will give us an overview of what the new Champions program looks like. And if you remember, what our objective here is at a strategic level is to connect the dots through leadership right the way into execution. And whilst in principle we've been able to do that with the Certified Process Professionals Champions and the ACX Champions process for the last 6 or 7 years, at the end of the day it's a lot of heavy lifting to make all those connections and keep all those wheels turning. So it's really good now that we can do this so digitally. So it's about connecting the dots, aligning everybody to successful customer outcomes as always, and by the delivery of those obviously we get the business outcomes as a side effect almost, and then establishing this results oriented communications. So any of the communications that are happening across the organisation should be have the result in mind, the outcome that we're trying to achieve. Okay. So when we're thinking about the Champions program, what we want to talk about is not just a particular type of champion. What we found is there's a confluence of the different levels. So the one we don't have on there is the Certified Outside In Champion, but that will be there quite soon as well, because the issues don't really matter on the discipline that you've come from. At a strategy, leadership, execution level, the issues are generic to the organisation, to the business, to the customer experience and to the processes. So hence the merger of the Champions program. When we start to think about that, there's 3 elements to it. As we said, strategy, that's all around outputs and outcomes. Leaderships, that's in and around our projects and our processes and our experiences. And then individual execution. And the model we're using as the Champions is the one you'll be familiar with from the Masters, when you did the Masters, however long ago was that, when we talked about the performance landscape. And the way it all hangs together is that from a strategic outputs and outcomes point of view, we're aligning and thinking of everybody aiming at achieving these outputs, producing these outputs to deliver these results, the outcomes, which contribute to business outcomes, which ultimately lead to a successful customer outcome. So just by way of a refresher. We're also, in terms of the build down from that, when you think about leadership and all the projects and processes that are happening, how are they happening in the organisation? So the mechanism to do that is about acknowledging the roles and responsibilities that people have got, looking at those things that we talk about through the outside in strategic matrix, where does it start and end, thinking about the successful customer outcome canvas. So what does success look like, identified through a set of metrics, and then the execution, the capacity to deliver. When we turn our attention to doing this in parallel, when we're working in parallel, what we can see is there's like 4 domains. That first one, direct and monitor strategic initiatives, so we're going to talk about how you do that. Establishing the ownerships and responsibilities, just as I've already said. Then transforming the strategies into results and outcomes. And to a very large extent closing what people refer to as the strategy execution gap. And it's making sure there isn't a gap there isn't a hole in the bridge that you can't get across. And then finally, aligning our people with the outcomes in real time. So that's around improvement, that's about getting better. So let's look at each one of those sort of domains. So we're directing and monitoring strategic initiatives. We need to be creating a dashboard which gives us an overview. Now this dashboard might be looked at from, say, the C-suite or the top team or whatever, and it's It's a collection of all the things that are going on within the remit, within the domain, but it's abstracted the data, so they don't have to drill down into the experience or process level. They can see the big picture, who's doing what, where, when and why and how, and that type of a thing. If necessary, when people start drilling down, you're looking at the same data. This isn't different data assembled in different places. This is the same data, one at a very detailed level, the other at a more abstract level. So how do we get to that? Well, I'll be taking you through the getting into working in parallel, just set up your username and password, all that stuff. Once you've done that, you've got your activation email, then what you'll be doing is these 7 things. We'll be typing in, what does our team do? Now, it could be you, it could be a team, it could be the department, it could be the division, it doesn't matter, but you'll type in, what does our team do? What is the target operating budget? Or if you're in a revenue generated situation, what is the revenue projected to be? So what's the target? Then select one metric to improve. So recall from the Masters we talk about the North Star metric, and we use for that mechanism the North Star alignment template. And that emerges one metric, the one metric that rules them all, like the Lord of the Rings, the one ring that rules them all. Well, that one metric that rules them all, what is it, and how much do you want to improve it by? So select then the organisation's departments will be in association with helping to achieve that metric. So say, for instance, it was grow revenue, then I'd be thinking about, well, I probably need sales and marketing in there, I might need operations, could probably need customer service. So there'll be a number of related departments that help us to achieve the win against that metric. Then we identify core stakeholders, and initially, as you'll see, it's 2, but you can add as many as you want. Identify 3 processes to improve. So revenue generation might be processes like obviously sales up front, the sales process, but it also might be things like customer retention at the back end. That would have an uplift to revenue as well. So you're looking at the 3 processes that by improving them, you'd actually achieve that deliverable, that outcome, that improvement in that metric. And then we catalogue our processes, and as we know, that's about drilling down into the process experience steps and then identifying moments of truth. So in a nutshell, that's direct and monitor strategic activities. Then it's all about, how do we establish ownership and responsibility to deliver those things? How does that work? So what we can do within Parallel is assign responsibilities through different people, through stakeholders, through owners, through the actual elements themselves. So there's 5 key ones of those, which define where the process starts and ends. We're all familiar with that. And we don't have to go too far to hear that quote from Steve Jobs. Again, the customer experience is the process. And with that in mind, you might start with it's when the need arises and it isn't over to when the need is satisfied. However, bearing in mind, sometimes our scope isn't as wide as that. So with that sort of context in mind, where does it start and end at the moment? Describe what success looks like and how it's measured. Identify the main steps in the process. So as we could see on the screen there, the main process steps, when we get them into Parallel, look like those guys over there, and it could be experience steps, process steps, the 2 interchangeable. Having identified the main steps, then what we want to do is assign ownership to those process steps. So we'll be going through that. And bearing in mind, from our champion's perspective, this is could be across the entire organisation. So it's not just one particular process experience. It could be all processes and experience. And then what we do is we invite a process owner and a champion to take charge. So we'll have a list of people who may be in the system or not. If they're not in the system, just use their emails, and what it does is ping them and invite them into what you've created. So that's all around establishing ownership and responsibility. The third of the 4 stages is then actually to be able to transform the strategies, those key top line objectives, into results and outcomes. So how would we do that? So it's all about the agile management and this connecting the dots in real time. So as change happens and improvements take place, they have a ripple effect right the way across all the dashboards and all the analytics. It's not like we then have to go into another meeting to discuss what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and then get it signed off. No, it's live and it's real time. It's happening as we do it. Now, for you and I, when we're doing our change management and our programs across organisations, that's hugely worthwhile. Imagine all those meetings you used to have and all those non-results oriented communications, all those emails, all those text messages, all that plethora of WhatsApp pings and things going on all day. And the worst of it is you have to read the things to understand whether it's worthwhile or not. So it's all that wasted time and duplication of effort. So with that sort of thing in mind, when we're working in this way, what we can do is we can tie the strategies into the results and outcomes. And of course, the results and outcomes are delivered by the processes and experiences that we've got across our organisation. And also, when you start to look at those processes and experiences real time, you want to be improving them. So we begin to think about, well, what could we do that would improve those things? So using the innovation approach, as you will get access to again, we do that within parallel. So working in parallel, we create the moments of truth, and then we identify what could we do to remove or improve these moments of truth. And it's all one cohesive whole, and it all sort of hangs together. And the fourth and final sort of piece of the Champion's jigsaw in the context of parallel is about aligning people with those business outcomes. So having identified the business outcomes, it's progressively aligning everybody, so we're all working in parallel to actually achieve the end goals, the end objectives, the end outcomes. So the business outcomes and the successful customer outcomes. So in the context of doing that, if you're looking at, for instance, the innovation approach, so the things down here that are on the screen, what we've got is all the moments of truth, and then accordingly to all the moments of truth, we've identified the Triple Crown benefits here as well. And what the system goes away and does for you is to calibrate the size of the prize against each one of those improvements. Oh wow, was that such a blessing than having to do all that manually and then have another workshop where you discuss them? No, you could do it live real time. You could say, for instance, will this significantly reduce costs? Will it reduce costs a bit? It won't reduce costs. You know, you've got options like that. And based on those assessments, particularly around Triple Crown, you can then inform other people through parallel is how we're doing in the minute, how we're performing. So it all hooks together in that place in terms of aligning people with the business outcomes in an ongoing way. So that's really what we will be doing in the sessions. It all hinges together in the model around the performance landscape, in that the dots are all connected and the lines are all drawn. There aren't disconnections in there. It's engineered to be that way from the get-go. So whether we're thinking of this from a CXC surface level, or we're thinking about the deep down processes and IT systems, what we're doing is creating one cohesive environment which change happens, we can see it, it's visible. Results are achieved, we can see how they're being achieved. We can assign responsibilities dynamically, we can invite people in and out of the tool. And when we're using parallel, of course, the paradigm we've gone with is to base it on processes and experiences rather than on bums on seats and users. So you can have a limited number of users. You could have one process which includes everybody in the organisation in there. That is one of the realities that we've sometimes seen. So in terms of how do you get access to this, well, there's a whole bunch of things that we're going to go through and we'll deep dive. In terms of the structure of it, what it is a number of different sessions over those 3 days, 4 or 5 sort of hours per day. So I think, I've done another slide on that. So you do the 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours a day. Why do we say 4 or 5 hours? Well, oftentimes we'll finish after 4 hours, but while something's fresh in your mind, you may want to try out the associated exercise which reinforce the technique. So at a strategy, leadership or execution level. It's 12 sessions altogether over the 3 days. Of course, those things are recorded, so if you have a chance to have to miss a session, don't worry, you can catch up with it later. And it's reinforced by the latest case studies, not some damn silly case study. I went on a webinar the other day and somebody was talking about this case study that happened in 1998, and I thought, seriously? How much has the world shifted since 1998? Let's get real. So the case studies are bang up to date. From the finish of the sessions, you, as we say, got the opportunity to do the exercises directly after we finished the live broadcast, but we give you sort of 4 weeks to spend time doing the exercises and work through them. There's 12 of them, 12 of those exercises altogether. I'll then be doing one-on-one reviews, so you'll send me the exercises in, your feedback and so on, and we'll get on a call. I'll help you sharpen the sword a little bit more, or suggest other things, or I'll be surprised, and we can then share some enthusiasm about what you've been doing and how you've been doing it. And as you often know, people doing these things over the last 12 to 18 months have actually been using the exercises to run a project, and then they've implemented it. So we have a win directly at the end of the training sessions, which is neat. I've also built in this ongoing mentoring and support, so some of you will know that how that works. If you've not had exposure to it, all I'm going to ask you to do is to reach out. We establish some sort of agenda for you over the next 12 months in terms of your learning objectives and things like that, and then I'll help you get there. And oftentimes that doesn't involve any further exchange of remuneration, let's put it like that. And you may in turn want to then advance to become a mentor or a coach. And indeed, there may be mentors or coaches who are coming back to do refreshers on the champions, and that's perfectly valid. So you may find in the session that you're participating in, you recognise some of the people, you realise some of the names, some of the folks in there. So how do you get access to it? Well, somewhere around me is that link. Obviously, you'll be trying to click the screen, and I'll make sure that that's dynamic and it actually works. If you're already a champion, right, what we've done is put a package together which is just a single $100 payment. And you'll get the complete, now I say it's a refresh, this is like 90% new. So it's not so much a refresh as a complete, relearning of what you've already got. And then you'll be reaffirmed again and reaccredited and that type of a thing. The full price, as you can see there, is $997. That covers the 3 days, it covers all the materials, it covers access to Parallel, and as it says there, that unlimited lifetime access is worth up to $3,000 per annum. Right, so that's how much people are paying to get the access that you'll get as a champion. And then if you are quick on your feet, you can knock that $997 price out the window and get on the early bird for $697. So I've really tried with the team to make this as such an attractive proposition that you wouldn't want to do this. So if you're already a champion, fantastic, you can get on there for $100. If you're a master and you want to step up to the next level, the Champions is waiting for you. And we've got sessions which are happening all the time. When you click that link, it'll take you to the next virtual sessions that we're running. And I'm going to really look forward to working with you again. So hopefully see you soon. Any questions, ping me, reach out to me, WhatsApp me, do anything that you need to do to get in touch, and we can have conversations about it. Looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon. Bye. Cut.